Hi, I'm Kate Sullivan. I run creative operations for Pandora and SiriusXM. I'm based in California. I'm very happy to be here in track 2 with you all. We are going to be hearing today from Ishita Sinha, who will be speaking about content, data, and speed. I will be moderating this session, keeping an eye on the Q&A. So if you have questions about the content of the session, please put that in the Q&A portion. And I'm sure you all know by now, because this is probably the second or third session you've been in, but regular chat will be monitored by Henry Stewart, moderators, and can help with kind of general questions. So throw things in the Q&A as you think of them. I'll keep an eye on that, and I'm going to hand it over to Ishita, and then I'll be back on to moderate the discussion in a little bit.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? It's been a great day so far. I have attended a couple of sessions since this morning, and I really want to thank the speakers and the organizers for organizing such a well-rounded event today. So now that we are one full year, over a year actually, into the stay-at-home session, what are those regular activities that you are missing? I, for one, I'm definitely missing meeting people, my friends, my colleagues, my family, all of them, as I'm sure most of you are. And I mean, I was just talking to someone earlier today, and I was telling her that probably this session would also be live in person, and I could meet you all had we not been in this situation. But anyway, so in this new world, I was wishing my friend Lily last week. I was taking a little walk in my neighborhood, and I was browsing a website on my phone as I was talking to her, and I was doing some catch up. We hadn't talked in a little while, and I wanted to do something that would make her happy on her birthday. So on my phone, out popped a Starbucks ad with a salted caramel mocha frappuccino image, and I instantly knew what I had to do for Lily. I just ordered it for her, and I sent a heartfelt message along with it. And that, my friends, is the power of a beautiful ad at the right time and when you need it the most. So, as an advertiser, wouldn't it be great if you could, have the resources to pull the heartstrings of every Lily, Peter, Julia out there? You probably don't, right? Which is why the next best thing is having a tailored salted caramel mocha frappuccino ad out there for your brand or for your business. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to speak to you about 3 very important factors which could distinguish your brand, your business out from the rest and really make an impact on your audiences. So, this is what I have been doing at Coursera, where I have been working, and that's a little about me. I have been working in paid media advertising, and that was my latest role at Coursera. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. If any of you want to connect, I would definitely love to connect with you. So, as a business, how have you been speaking to your audience? Like, we have been in this new sort of a normal world for quite some time now, right? And for brands, that means that there is an added pressure to be bold, to be fresh, to be meaningful in their communication, all the while staying very relevant, staying very sensitive to this current climate. For creatives who are responsible for producing this material, it just means that you have to be more innovative, more flexible, and be timely in marketing communications, right? For audiences, we are confined in the space at home, and we are spending so much more time on our devices, and where we are seeing so many sorts of different communications from brands, from businesses, and it just means that as a brand, if you need to distinguish yourself out there, you need to be really, really different from what your competitor brand is doing. And which is why this phenomenon that we have right now, that there is an ever increasing speed between the production and the consumption of your creatives, your products, your content. This is, I wouldn't say this is a very new phenomenon, but it's certainly on steroids right now. That's what I feel, and that's what I tell whenever I'm talking to a fellow creative or a marketing person. So, what fuels this sort of a requirement for new volumes, added changes, added, speed that we need to come up with? I think that it's new content. It's the different types of content which we want to put out there, the new platforms that we are in, and of course, new audiences. I mean, think about it. Even a decade back, it was just a television, a couple of social media platforms, billboard, radio, and that was probably it. I mean, you could produce a video which was meant for a TV spot, and then you could add that to your YouTube. And if it was lesser than a certain time limit, you could even put it on Instagram or on Facebook, and you would be happy with it, right? I mean, all of us have been through this, right? But now these tactics in the digital space will not work anymore because every medium has some sort of a content which needs to be tailor made for that particular medium. And choosing this right medium, the right message, the right time, and delivering it in the most meaningful way, which is relevant to that one persona of your audience, that's what's most important. And of course, there is representation, there is inclusiveness, all of which now forms the world of content creation. I mean, when people look at an ad or when people look at a content, a blog post, anything out there on the internet, they often think, does the person within this ad look like me? If not, then you are not doing a great job as a brand because your audiences are not connecting with you. And which is why personalized marketing, personalized content creation, which has been custom made for that one segment or that one subculture of your audience is becoming so important. I mean, there have been plenty of studies, there have been plenty of panels, discussions around how personalized content does play an important part in today's world. But I'm going to quote Dale Carnegie. Years before, he had written a book which was called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, there was one quote which had caught my attention the most. And it said, remember that a person's name to that person is the sweetest and the most important sound in any language. And while in the book, it actually spoke to one on one conversations, like a dialogue between people, I think it's very relevant to the sort of best practices that we want for effective content marketing. And then, what are the factors that this personalization depends on? And what should we, as marketing team, as marketeers, as creatives, do in order to be cohesive, in order to have that sort of a homogeneity in our communication? First and foremost, we must know how we segment our audience. And I think it's much beyond knowing where your customer is or what are they looking for. It's more knowing them on a personal level and running a personalized campaign for that one particular persona or that one particular segment of your audience. And then you must be able to update your ads, your content, your creatives in real time. Static, non-dynamic ads simply won't do when you have all the other brands in the digital space vying for the customer's attention. And it's the same customer again. It's not like you're having a different sort of a customer base out there because people are limited in this world, right? Like you don't keep changing people at all. So real-time creative optimization, use of analytics, machine learning, and all of these added technology is something that we all need in marketing today. And the third one is being able to create variations at scale. This is something that I'm going to talk about a little more in detail in a few minutes. But even when you're doing all these three steps, you must also make sure that you know what is the position of your consumer in the consumption funnel. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about top of funnel, middle of the funnel, and then bottom of the funnel. I like to classify these as three stages where you can attract your prospective audience, where you can engage them, and then you can sort of delight them. Now, what do I mean by these? When someone is in the discovery phase, you need to attract them towards your brand because they may or may not have heard about your brand before. They may not have heard about your business before. So there are ways like landing pages, videos, infographics, checklists, ads, of course. And on social media platforms, none of us, we go directly to buy something, right? We are just there to catch up with friends. We are there to look at photos, videos, and whatnot. So being able to attract your prospective audience is the key when they are top of funnel and when they are in the discovery stage. Middle of the funnel, which is the engagement stage, in there you need to be able to post certain content like say blog posts or white papers or ebooks or case studies or webinars, which then hook your audience and you as a brand are engaging with them. And of course, there's no point in creating 100 blog posts when all of them will take you to the same homepage, so they are not really discovering more areas of your website or more areas of your product. So that is one phase where you need to deeply engage with your audience. And then you have the delight stage where you're giving them special offers, contests, giveaways, any sort of promotions, and all of that. Now, with everything in here, how do we even talk to our customers? So now, for a very long time, the data and data driven marketing was not a thing. What was a thing was your intuition. Are you able to tell your story in a compelling manner? Are you creating content which is relevant for the audience? But right now, with this digital disruption that has occurred in the last few years, you need to know the customer. You need to be able to understand their behavior. And there is so much data out there in the social media platforms that you need to understand what are they looking for. You need to listen to your customer, dig deeper, and investigate. And data is everywhere. A few of the data sources that I have used in my data discovery and my discovery of customers are these, where we have emails going to the customers, we have product betas, we have audio channels, podcasts, we have social media, we have paid media, we have web analytics, search engines. So there is this whole plethora of data sources which we could use to understand our customers, to measure the performances of our campaigns, and to be able to understand what content needs to be created to stay relevant to your audience. So a lot of marketers in today's world as well, they just measure the performance of a campaign after the campaign is done. But at Coursera, why we use data is to understand how we can modulate the content creation process based on what data we have about our learners, about our consumers. The data collection just does not start when the campaign starts. It starts even before, when we are understanding and when we are split testing our creatives, when we are A/B testing what happens in each of the stages where our customers or our learners go through. And it's pretty simple, in my opinion. There are a lot of ways I have put data to test. I have A/B tested variations of email subject lines. Some subject lines click more with audiences than the others. There is static versus interactive content. There is text versus video. There are different time durations of videos, which you can put up on your Instagram. There are reels now. There are YouTube videos. There are carousels versus static. Many of your social media platforms, many of your ad platforms will give you this variability. There is thought leadership. There are testimonials. There are click to actions, different click to actions, different copies, and all of this. So the main thing is you can play around with whatever. Like there are different elements that you can play around with, and these are some of them that I have used. There is also tone. How do some content speak to your audience? If a content which is more casual in its tone speaks better to a sort of audience, then you know that they have a more laid back personality, and then you can strategize likewise. But if a If the tone of your content is more professional and people are taking notice of that, then you know that your audience is looking for more educational materials, more tools, more webinars, or more case studies, and the likes. So at Coursera, for our subscription plan, which is Coursera Plus, we've used data in many different ways to aid in the content production process. So we've had ads. So in this one, we were testing value proposition, if the number of courses matters or not to the audience. If it doesn't, do the logos of different partners that we have partnered with to showcase content, to have content on our platform, if showcasing that matters to our audience? Does unlimited access matter to our audience? So as you can see, most elements in these ads are similar, and we are just testing by tweaking one particular element. In this, we've changed the value proposition, and we are trying to say, does save money sound better to our audience or not? And then we also have different looking people for different geographies. We've had learners with certificates because this might align more to what I need from Coursera. We've tried testimonials. We've also tried looking at domains, for example, data science career skills, and does this work with our audience or not? So everything that we do in terms of content creation goes through this data driven sort of an approach, and that's where we have found the most success. In other words, you must not only use data to help you determine whether and to what degree the content is connecting with your audience, but you must also use data to help in your content creation process upfront. Now, with all of this, in order to appear authentic, in order to appear timely, brands are also realizing that in most cases, it's important to get your message out there more quickly rather than have that pixel perfect look and that studio created video and whatnot. So, for that, now that we have so many platforms that we need to cater to as a brand, we have desktop, we have mobile phones, we even have smart watches. In some countries, you have messaging apps, which are medium for advertising. You have World Wide Web, you have podcasts, radio, and whatnot. It matters that with so many platforms that your message needs to get onto, we've used existing footage, we've used stock videos, we've used pre-existing template, and I'm sure a lot of you have done this. Another big trend that we've noticed during this lockdown is that user-generated content or even content captured through mobile phones have been gaining a lot of acceleration. And this is emphasizing the fact further that studio created content, it takes time. And what's more important is the effective messaging rather than having that pixel perfect content out there as a brand. And that is where I feel that creative automation needs to come into. So the evolution, the diversification of ad channels, auction algorithms forcing you to make better ads, consumers demanding personalization, ensuring brand homogeneity on a global level, all of this somehow has started the demand for creative automation. And we as brands need to be able to balance between this manual production process that we have been used to for quite some time now and be able to balance it with the creative automation process, which is seeming to be the more helpful way to go out there. And creative automation is just a term for leveraging technology to scale your video ads, to scale your banner ads, and take out the manual work of the equation wherever it's repetitive. Just let technology handle that. And I think that there are four very basic steps which we have experimented with, and I would like to break them down into four steps. First one, create a strong brand asset, which will serve as your base creative. Now, the next step is use technology to transform this asset into custom reusable templates with dynamic elements. Or you could also build these templates manually from the scratch. The third step in this process is to select dynamic elements such as text, images, any of the other graphic elements that you would like to add in your content, and link them to the data sources like your product feed, or maybe your whole catalog, or your spreadsheets to each variable element. And the last step is to generate all the media versions that you need in a couple of minutes using any of the creative automation tools, and share them with your customer. And of course, remember to do a lot of experimenting. Now, this definitely helps us in more ways than one. You can serve your global markets by making changes on the fly to include multiple languages, headlines, click to actions, backgrounds, overlay text, any of the other graphic elements. You know it, you've been doing it. You can also tailor your ads to match your audience's intent, to be able to showcase them on the right channel at the right time with the right message, and create some sort of a personalization that your audience is expecting. You could also focus on the storytelling aspect, because not everything in your ad creation process is left to creative automation. And I'm sure that the creative automation tools out there can even handling the story, can even handle the storytelling aspect of it. And the most important reason is that in today's world, where costs are important to businesses, where headcounts are important to businesses, this helps you to have a core functional team of your brand and creative, and even then be able to scale it to such a level that you are creating you're creating any sort of content, your products, your ads, your creatives, your graphics, your videos, any of these at a very rapid scale at which it is being demanded, and yet helping your team stay focused and not losing their peace of mind, wherein they are like, what do we do next? How do we be more innovative? And stuff like that. And now that's what creates a brand and a creative team which is happy. You have a happy customer, which feels that you as a brand are connecting with your audience. You know, you're connecting to that subculture, that sub persona, that persona who you would want to actually speak to. And that is the whole essence of, you know, being able to speed up your process, make very rapid creative production, and that's how you stay relevant to your audiences in today's market. Thanks for joining, you all. I hope this added some value to your work that you do as creatives, as marketeers. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent. So well put together and easy to kind of follow what can feel like a very fast and complicated, because I think because of the speed, it can sometimes feel hard for those of us working on this type of content to get a handle on it. But you did an excellent job of distilling that down into something that feels much more manageable, which is inspiring and is the purpose of these types of discussions, I think, to give people a moment to let it sink in. Reminder to everybody to put questions in the Q&A. I have a couple questions myself, so I'm just gonna get in there and I'll monitor the chat too. I'm curious well, a couple things. So I work in creative. So I work on the creative operations side, and we partner very closely with marketing teams, including our paid media teams who do a lot of this work. And I think it's a really interesting challenge to figure out, you know, what should be manual and what should be automated, and introducing new tools. So I have a kind of a two-part question. One is if you can walk us through a time where you saw that transition happen. So how do you introduce a new tool, a new sort of automation tool to a creative and marketing team, and any tips you have there? And then also, I know we're not here to like plug tools, but if you have something, is there something you use that you think works really well? And let us know that too.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for your question, Kate. So I would like to think that in terms of creative automation tool, I think I would not be the correct person to be suggesting which tool we've been using. And that's something that our brand and creative team have been very, they've obviously worked on it, and they would be the perfect people to let suggestions known. So, but I would like to say that anytime we've used any creative tool for that matter, even for managing projects, even for managing the creative operations side of things, we have had changes in the tools. And it all starts with how it serves our purpose as a brand and how it serves the problem that we are facing at this time. So if we have a problem like where we are not able to scale up production in a very meaningful way in a fast pace like we've been needing from our audiences, or what we've been needing from the business, that's when we start to think that if this tool could help save us from all the work that we are doing and could help us be able to automate our process, then we as a team, we then form a workshop sort of session, understand what the benefits are of this tool, whether or not it checks the list that we have for the list of problems and whatnot. And then we do a sort of a pros and a cons sort of a situation of the different tools when we are introducing them to our team, and then understand how would it benefit us and how would it solve each of the problems that we have.
That makes sense. Yeah, and somebody else was also asking about recommending tools, and it seems like that's maybe something we can connect. You can connect people with other
Yes,
people
definitely.
who would know would be great. Yeah, because I think that that's
Definitely.
something that it can feel overwhelming sometimes to know that if you're introducing a new tool, exactly to your point, it's like you want to make sure that it's a very long process. I mean, I'm even to just bring something into an enterprise corporation, and you want to make sure you're doing it right. So yeah, maybe we can figure out
And
how
that
to connect
everything is on,
everybody.
everyone is on board. I think that's
Yes.
what's most important, right? Like, I think maybe this tool is helpful, somebody on the creative team doesn't think so. So that's what's most important, and I'm happy to be introduced to anyone who has any questions, and I can introduce people on my team for that. So thank you for that, Kate.
Wonderful. Okay, good. Yeah, we have another question here. It's about your 4 steps. It says you mentioned 4 steps, all starting with one large creative video asset that you then pull photos, shorter videos, etc., from to stretch out. How long would you use that asset? When do you refresh it? Is it something you make quarterly? I think you had mentioned, I think they're referring to what you called the brand asset, the first one. So how often do you
Yes.
refresh the baseline?
Yeah. So every time we have our creative prioritization on a quarterly basis, so we have one for Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So we run our assets for the entire quarter, and then we start understanding if that asset is even making sense, if that and like I said, we always create ad variations, a lot of ad variations, to understand what sort of ad, what sort of element within that ad, or what sort of click to action is working. And then we take those learnings from one quarter and then refresh it and use it in the next quarter. So if anything's put out from Coursera in Q1, we will take the learnings from that to Q2, and then we will refresh our creatives in Q2 and then put it again out in the market to start experimenting with our target audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So does that then sort of follow the way you're also kind of your sort of test and learn cycle is quarterly as well, in terms, because it can be
Yes.
hard sometimes to stop after, like, you're sort of constantly pulling analytics. So does that also follow a sort of quarterly cycle?
It does. It definitely does. And that's why we've divided it, because if you do it on a more monthly sort of a cycle, we do not get enough time to test it out. So we keep a testing time of maybe 45 days or 50 days. And then we sort of start pulling the analytics for each of these ads, each of these metrics, and then start understanding, okay. And then we also have a time of about 20 days or 10 days to be able to communicate this to the creative team and do an complete overhaul of our creatives for the next quarter. So it's definitely a cycle, like you mentioned, of test, learn, and then retest that back, or take those learnings into the testing cycle once again, or the creation process once again.
We have another question in here that I'm very curious your answer to. It says, great session. Do you have any suggestions for getting started? Where would you begin?
Getting started in terms of creative automation, or
so if the anonymous user wants to elaborate, that's how I took it.
Okay.
I think answer that one while we wait, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, for sure. So no, in terms of creative automation, it depends on what your need is, because a lot of brands, do not do creative refresh often. And if your brand needs that, then be able to identify whether or not you need the creative automation. Because if you don't need it, you just don't do it, right? Because
Yeah.
it's about it's not that like everyone has to do it, but if you need it, you try and understand which elements of your advertising or which elements of your media production needs automation and
Yeah.
start only with that. So if it is your video, start with your video. If it is your text ad, start with your text ad. But try doing it one step at a time, because that helps you learn and take the learnings to the next phase of it. Don't do it like all across the board and be confused yourself. That would be my
Good advice
two
for
cents.
many things in life. Thank you so much. We're at time. I really appreciate your presentation, everybody's questions and engagement.